The hallways of Pinecrest Community College were quiet in the late afternoon. Most students had already left for the day, hurrying home to start their weekend early. But in the mathematics building, lights still burned in several classrooms where dedicated students worked on complex problems and teachers graded endless stacks of papers. Among them moved Ana Diaz, a woman in her mid-40s wearing the simple gray uniform of the college's cleaning staff. She pushed her cart quietly from room to room, careful not to disturb anyone as she emptied trash bins and wiped down surfaces. Her movements were efficient, practiced from years of the same routine, but anyone watching closely might notice how her eyes lingered on the equations scrawled across the whiteboards. Ana had worked at Pinecrest for nearly 6 years now. The pay wasn't great, but the hours suited her, starting in the late afternoon and finishing in the evening, allowing her to be home in time to help her teenage daughter with homework. More importantly, the job came with the promise that her daughter might one day attend classes here at a reduced rate, a thought that kept Ana going through long shifts and aching feet. No, no, no. That's completely wrong. The sharp voice echoed down the hallway from room 237. Ana winced. She knew that voice all too well. Professor Thomas Chen was teaching his advanced calculus class, and someone had apparently given the wrong answer. The professor wasn't known for his patience. Students often joked that he had 2 modes, brilliantly explaining complex mathematics or ruthlessly pointing out how everyone else was failing to understand even the simplest concepts. Pushing her cart toward room 237, Ana prepared herself for the usual routine. Wait quietly at the door until there was a pause in the lecture. Slip in unnoticed, clean quickly, and leave without drawing attention. Usually, Professor Chen barely acknowledged her presence, too focused on his mathematical world to register the woman who cleaned his classroom. Tonight, though, was different. As Ana waited by the doorway, she couldn't help but notice the massive equation sprawled across the whiteboard. It was an integration problem. She recognized the familiar elongated S symbol that had always reminded her of a curving road. Without thinking, she tilted her head slightly, examining the problem's structure. I've explained this 3 times now. Professor Chen's voice had taken on the tight, clipped tone that students dreaded. He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair, clearly frustrated. This is a critical concept for your final exam. If you can't grasp this level of multivariable calculus, I don't know how you expect to pass this course. 20 tired faces stared back at him. It was Friday evening, and most of these students had already completed a full day of classes. Many had part-time jobs to get to after this 3-hour marathon calculus session. Their blank expressions only seemed to fuel Professor Chen's irritation. Let me try another approach, he said, erasing part of the equation with sharp, angry motions. Maybe a simpler example will... He stopped suddenly, noticing Ana hovering in the doorway with her cleaning cart. Under normal circumstances, he would have simply nodded and continued with his lecture. But something about the combination of his frustration with the class and Ana's curious gaze at the whiteboard sparked a different response. Ah, perfect timing, Professor Chen said, his voice taking on a strange edge. Perhaps we need a fresh perspective. The students turned to look at Ana, who immediately lowered her eyes. I'm sorry, Professor. I didn't mean to interrupt. I can come back later, she said softly, already beginning to back her cart out of the doorway. No, please come in. There was something in his tone, not exactly cruel, but certainly not kind. You've been cleaning this classroom for years. Surely you must have picked up some calculus by now. A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked down at their notebooks, embarrassed by the professor's obvious sarcasm. Ana froze, caught between the instinct to retreat and the workplace requirement to clean each room on her schedule. I'll be quick, she said, attempting to diffuse the situation. Actually, Professor Chen continued, picking up a dry erase marker and holding it out to her. I'm curious. You've been listening to my lectures while you clean, haven't you? I've seen you watching the board. Ana's cheeks flushed. It was true. She often found herself captivated by the elegant dance of numbers and symbols that Professor Chen created across the whiteboard. There was something beautiful about mathematics that had always called to her, even if her own formal education had ended far too early. She began, then stopped, unsure what to say. Come now, Professor Chen persisted, gesturing toward the whiteboard. This problem has stumped my students who have been studying calculus for years. Would you like to take a shot at it? Show us what you've learned from all that listening." A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the classroom. One student, a young woman with bright blue streaks in her dark hair, frowned openly at the professor. Another, a tall boy in a basketball jersey, whispered something to his neighbor. Anna stood rooted to the spot, her hands gripping the handle of her cleaning cart so tightly that her knuckles whitened. This wasn't the first time someone had tried to make her feel small, to remind her of her place. Usually she would smile politely and find a way to disappear, to become invisible again. But something about today was different. Maybe it was the long week she'd had, or maybe it was the recent parent-teacher conference where her daughter's math teacher had praised Lily's exceptional abilities. Abilities that reminded Anna so much of herself at that age, before life had taken her down a different path. "Okay," she said quietly, surprising herself as much as everyone else in the room. Professor Chen's eyebrows shot up. He clearly hadn't expected her to accept his challenge. For a brief moment, discomfort flashed across his face as he realized his joke had backfired, but he quickly recovered, handing her the marker with a thin smile. "The floor is yours," he said, stepping back and crossing his arms. Anna approached the whiteboard slowly. The classroom had fallen completely silent. She could feel 21 pairs of eyes on her back as she studied the complex equation that Professor Chen had written out. It involved multiple integrals and a substitution method that she recognized from lectures she'd overheard while cleaning. Her hand trembled slightly as she raised the marker to the board. In her mind, she could hear her grandmother's voice from long ago. "Never let anyone tell you what you can and cannot learn. Anita, your mind is your own and no one can take that from you." Anna took a deep breath. The trembling in her hand stopped. She began to write. At first, her movements were slow and deliberate, breaking down the problem into manageable pieces just as she'd heard Professor Chen instruct his students many times before. She started with the inner integral, identifying the appropriate substitution needed to simplify the expression. As she worked, something strange happened. The classroom around her seemed to fade away. The uncomfortable stares, Professor Chen's surprise, her own self-consciousness, all of it dissolved into the background as she lost herself in the rhythm of the mathematics. This was a language she understood in some deep, intuitive way. It reminded her of the hours she had spent as a young girl in her homeland, working through old textbooks borrowed from the local teacher who had recognized her talent, before life had intervened, before responsibilities and necessities had pushed her dreams aside. Anna's hand moved more confidently now, filling the whiteboard with neat, precise calculations. She approached a tricky part of the problem and paused, considering. Then she recalled a technique she'd overheard in Professor Chen's lecture last month, a clever way to handle this particular type of expression. Behind her, someone gasped softly. She didn't turn around. When she finally stepped back from the board 5 minutes later, the silence in the room had transformed from awkward to astonished. Anna kept the marker and turned, expecting to see mockery on Professor Chen's face. Instead, his expression was unreadable, a complex mixture of disbelief, confusion, and something that might have been respect. He stepped forward and examined her work closely, tracing the steps of her solution with his finger. Then he checked the final answer against his notes, blinking rapidly. "This is," he began, then cleared his throat. "This is correct. Completely correct." His voice had lost all its earlier sarcasm. "And this approach here," he pointed to a section of her work. "I've never seen it done quite this way. It's elegant." The classroom erupted into whispers. Several students were staring at Anna with newfound curiosity. The girl with blue streaks in her hair was smiling broadly. Anna handed the marker back to Professor Chen, suddenly very aware of the attention. "I should finish my cleaning," she said softly, turning back toward her cart. "Wait," Professor Chen said, his voice completely different now. "Please wait. Where did you learn to do this?" Anna paused, one hand on her cleaning cart. For a moment, she considered brushing off the question, returning to the invisible role she'd played for so many years. But something had shifted inside her, like a door long locked had suddenly been opened. "I've always loved mathematics," she said simply, "and I listen when you teach." Professor Chen looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, not as part of the background, not as someone who emptied trash bins and wiped down desks, but as a person with a mind as sharp and capable as any he had encountered. "We should talk," he said finally, his voice quiet but urgent. "After class, if you have time." Anna nodded slightly, then resumed her cleaning duties, moving efficiently around the classroom as Professor Chen slowly turned back to his students, who were now looking between him and Anna with wide eyes. "Well," he said, sounding slightly dazed, "I think we've all learned something important today." He glanced back at Anna, "and I suspect we have much more to learn in the days ahead." Anna finished wiping down the last desk in the far corner of the classroom, keeping her eyes focused on her work. She could still feel the stares of the students, their whispers barely contained as Professor Chen attempted to continue with the lesson. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed. What had started as a cruel joke had transformed into something none of them had expected. "That will be all for today," Professor Chen announced finally, his voice lacking its usual authoritative edge. "Review chapters 7 and 8 for Monday, and I expect much better preparation next time." The students gathered their books and laptops, but they moved slowly, many of them stealing glances at Anna as they packed up. A few looked like they wanted to approach her, but hesitated, unsure of what to say to the cleaning lady who had just solved a problem that had stumped them all. The girl with blue streaks in her hair paused by Anna's cart. "That was amazing," she said quietly. "Seriously. You should have seen his face when you started working through that second integral." Anna gave her a small smile. "Thank you. I'm Zoe," the girl continued. "I've been struggling in this class all semester. Maybe you could tutor me sometime." Her eyes widened. I didn't mean to assume. I'm sorry if that was rude." "It's not rude," Anna assured her, "but I'm just the cleaning staff. I don't think the college would allow that." Zoe frowned. "That's stupid. You clearly understand this stuff better than half the teaching assistants." Professor Chen cleared his throat from the front of the room. "Ms. Williams, do you have somewhere to be?" Zoe rolled her eyes but nodded. "See you around," she whispered to Anna before hurrying out. Soon the classroom was empty except for Anna and Professor Chen. He stood awkwardly by his desk, shuffling papers and glancing up at her every few seconds. Anna continued her work methodically, emptying the small trash can by the door and replacing its liner. "You don't have to do that right now," Professor Chen said suddenly. "Please, can we talk?" Anna straightened up. In 6 years of working at the college, no professor had ever asked to speak with her beyond giving instructions about which areas to clean or which desk to avoid because of an ongoing experiment. "I need to finish my rounds," she said carefully. "My supervisor checks." "I'll speak with your supervisor," Professor Chen said, waving away her concern. "This is more important." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please." Anna hesitated, then slowly sat down, perching on the edge of the seat as if ready to jump up at any moment. She kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Professor Chen sat down heavily in his own chair, studying her with new eyes. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "What I did was disrespectful and unprofessional." "I'm sorry." Anna nodded slightly but remained silent. "How did you learn calculus?" he asked, leaning forward. "You said you've been listening to my lectures, but that doesn't explain. What you just did goes beyond basic understanding." That was mastery. Anna shifted uncomfortably under his intense gaze. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not from someone like Professor Chen, whose reputation for brilliance was matched only by his impatience with those who couldn't keep up. "I've always been good with numbers," she said finally. "Even as a child." "Where did you go to school?" "I completed high school in my home country, in a small town outside Guayaquil, Ecuador." Anna's voice grew softer. "My mathematics teacher there, Mr. Suarez, gave me extra books to study." "He said I had a gift." He was right, Professor Chen said firmly. "But after high school? Did you attend university?" Anna shook her head. "My father died during my last year of school. I had 4 younger siblings. My mother needed help." She shrugged slightly, a gesture that conveyed both acceptance and old pain. "Life happens." Professor Chen was quiet for a moment, processing this. "So you never received formal training in advanced mathematics? No college courses?" "No," Anna said, "but I still read when I can. The library has some good books and—" She smiled slightly. "Your lectures are very clear even when I only hear parts while cleaning." Professor Chen looked stunned. You've pieced together an understanding of multivariable calculus from overhearing lectures and reading library books. Anna felt her cheeks grow warm. Put that way, it sounded either impressive or pathetic. She wasn't sure which. Mathematics makes sense to me, she said simply. It always has. Professor Chen stood up suddenly and walked to the whiteboard. He erased her previous work and wrote out a new problem. Something involving differential equations that Anna recognized from lectures he'd given to a different, even more advanced class. What about this? He asked, stepping back from the board. Anna studied the equation, feeling a familiar sense of calm settle over her as she processed the symbols and relationships. Without waiting for further prompting, she stood up and took the marker he offered. This time, she approached the problem differently, using a technique she'd read about in an old textbook she'd found at a secondhand store. It was an approach that simplified the equation by transforming the variables in a way that made the solution more direct. As she worked, she found herself explaining her thinking out loud, something she rarely did. If we look at this as a system rather than a single equation, she said, circling a section of the problem, we can see a pattern emerge that suggests. She worked steadily for several minutes, lost in the puzzle of it. When she finished and turned around, Professor Chen was staring at her with an expression of astonishment. That's, he began, then stopped, shaking his head. That's the Liu method. It's not even taught in undergraduate courses. It's typically covered in second-year graduate-level differential equations. Anna capped the marker. I don't know what it's called. I found it in a book. What book? Professor Chen asked incredulously. Advanced Methods in Differential Equations by Liu and Hernandez. The library was discarding it because it was old and damaged. They let me have it. Professor Chen sat down heavily in his chair again. Anna, do you realize how extraordinary this is? You have an intuitive grasp of higher mathematics that most of my graduate students would envy, and you've developed it largely on your own, without formal training. Anna wasn't sure how to respond. She'd never thought of her interest in mathematics as anything special, just a private pleasure, a mental escape from the daily realities of life. Like how some people did crossword puzzles or played chess. I need to finish my cleaning route, she said, glancing at the clock on the wall. My supervisor will be checking soon. Of course, yes, Professor Chen said, standing up quickly. But would you be willing to meet again? Perhaps during your break or after your shift one day next week? Anna frowned slightly. Why? Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted, he said with unexpected passion. Because I have colleagues who would be fascinated to meet you. Because, he paused, searching for words. Because I think there might be opportunities here that you should consider. Anna felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope, maybe, or excitement. But it was quickly tempered by practicality. I have a daughter, she said. She's 16. My shift works with her schedule. I can't change that. We can work around your schedule, Professor Chen assured her. Just say you'll think about it. Anna nodded slowly. I'll think about it. She gathered her cleaning supplies and pushed her cart toward the door, her mind whirling with the events of the past hour. As she reached the doorway, Professor Chen called after her. Anna, that solution you found, the one using the substitution method for the first problem, it was elegant. More elegant than the approach I was going to show them. He smiled, a genuine smile without any trace of his earlier condescension. I might use it in my next lecture if you don't mind. For the first time that evening, Anna felt a small surge of pride. I don't mind, she said, and continued on her rounds. The hallways were quieter now, most classes having ended for the day. As Anna moved from room to room, completing her usual tasks, she found herself working through Professor Chen's differential equation again in her mind, testing different approaches, wondering if there might be an even more efficient solution. She was so absorbed in these thoughts that she almost bumped into her supervisor, Mrs. Patel, who was checking off rooms on her clipboard. Sorry, Anna said quickly. I was distracted. Mrs. Patel looked up, adjusting her glasses. You're behind schedule, Anna. Is everything all right? You're usually very prompt. I'm sorry, Anna said again. I got held up in room 237. Professor Chen wanted to speak with me. Mrs. Patel raised her eyebrows. Professor Chen? What did he want? Anna hesitated, unsure how to explain what had happened. He had some questions for me, she said finally. Well, try to stay on schedule. Mrs. Patel said, making a note on her clipboard. End of term is coming up and the professors get very particular about their spaces. Anna nodded and continued her work, moving more quickly to make up for lost time. But as she cleaned, her mind kept returning to the whiteboard in room 237, to the look of surprise on Professor Chen's face, to the feeling she'd experienced when solving those problems, a sense of rightness, of being exactly where she belonged. By the time she clocked out that evening, Anna had made a decision. She would meet with Professor Chen and his colleagues. She would at least hear what opportunities they might suggest. She owed herself that much. As she waited at the bus stop in the cool evening air, Anna found herself doing something she hadn't done in years, dreaming of possibilities beyond tomorrow's shift, beyond next week's bills, beyond the careful, practical life she had constructed out of necessity. For the first time in a very long time, Ana Diaz allowed herself to wonder, what if? The small apartment was filled with the smell of garlic and onions as Anna stirred the pot of beans simmering on the stove. From the living room came the sound of her daughter Lily's voice, reading aloud from a textbook, practicing for a presentation in her biology class. How's it coming? Anna called, adding a pinch of cumin to the beans. Almost done, Lily answered. But I still don't get why the mitochondria are so important. I mean, I know they're the powerhouse of the cell and all that, but why does it matter? Anna smiled to herself. Her daughter always needed to understand the why behind things, not just memorize facts. She was like Anna in that way. It matters because energy is everything, Anna said, turning down the heat. Nothing in the cell works without energy, just like nothing in our house works without electricity. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her school notebook clutched to her chest. At 16, she looked more like her father every day. The same thoughtful eyes, the same determined set to her jaw. I guess, she said, leaning against the doorframe. But Mrs. Rivera just wants us to memorize the parts of the cell. She doesn't care if we understand why they matter. You should understand anyway, Anna said, stirring the pot one final time before covering it. For yourself, not for the grade. Lily rolled her eyes but smiled. You always say that, because it's always true. Anna wiped her hands on a dishcloth. Tables set. Dinner in 5 minutes. As they ate, Anna listened to Lily talk about her day, a quiz in Spanish class, drama in the cafeteria between two friends, the physics teacher, who had been absent for the 3rd time that month. Anna ate slowly, only half listening, her mind repeatedly drifting back to the events in room 237. Mom, did you hear what I said? Anna blinked, refocusing on her daughter's face. I'm sorry, Mia. What did you say? I asked if you're okay. You seem distracted. Anna hesitated. She hadn't planned to tell Lily about what happened yet, not until she knew what would come of it. But her daughter was watching her with concerned eyes, and Anna had never been good at hiding things from her. Something unusual happened at work today, she began, setting down her fork. She told Lily about Professor Chen's challenge, about solving the problem, about the second equation and his reaction. As she spoke, Lily's eyes grew wider and wider. He seriously tried to embarrass you in front of his class? Lily said, indignant. What a jerk. He apologized, Anna said quickly. And I think he was genuinely surprised. Still, Lily muttered. Wait, so he wants to meet with you again? Like to talk about math? Anna nodded. He mentioned opportunities. I'm not sure what he meant. You have to go, Lily said immediately, leaning forward. Mom, this could be huge. Maybe they'll offer you a job as a teaching assistant or something. Anna shook her head, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm. I doubt that. I don't have a degree. But you're obviously better at math than most people with degrees, Lily argued. They'd be stupid not to see that. It's not that simple, Anna said. But I told him I would meet with him. We'll see what happens. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Anna sat at their small kitchen table with a cup of tea, thinking. She pulled out an old, water-damaged textbook from her bag, the Lewin Hernandez book she'd mentioned to Professor Chen. Its cover was faded, its pages yellowed, but Anna had read it cover to cover at least 5 times over the years. She opened it to a familiar chapter and began working through one of the more complex examples, jotting notes on a pad of paper. There was a particular technique described in the later chapters that she'd never fully mastered, something about Fourier transformations. If she was going to meet with Professor Chen and his colleagues, She wanted to be prepared. Hours later, Anna finally went to bed, her mind still buzzing with equations and possibilities. The mathematics department faculty lounge was nothing special, just a medium-sized room with a large table, several mismatched chairs, a small kitchenette with a coffee maker, and bookshelves lining the walls. But to Anna, standing nervously in the doorway 3 days after the incident in room 237, it felt like foreign territory. "Ah, Anna," Hugh came. Professor Chen stood up from the table where he'd been sitting with 3 other people. "Please come in." Anna stepped into the room, very aware of her gray uniform and the cleaning cart she'd parked in the hallway outside. She'd come during her lunch break, as Professor Chen had suggested. "Everyone, this is Anna Diaz," Professor Chen said to the others at the table. "Anna, I'd like you to meet Dr. Helen Wu, our department chair, Dr. Robert Patel, who specializes in applied mathematics, and Dr. Nadia Okafor, our resident expert in mathematical theory." Anna nodded politely to each of them, trying to hide her discomfort. "Thank you for meeting with me." "The pleasure is ours," Dr. Wu said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Thomas has told us quite a remarkable story. We're very interested in hearing more." Anna sat down cautiously, keeping her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. "I'm not sure what more there is to tell. Tom says you solved a complex integration problem using an approach he hadn't considered," Dr. Patel said, his eyes curious behind round glasses. "And then you tackled a differential equation using the Liu method, which you taught yourself from a discarded textbook." When he put it that way, it sounded almost impressive. Anna shifted in her seat. "I just solve problems the way that makes sense to me," she said simply. "Would you mind showing us?" Dr. Okafor asked, sliding a notepad across the table. "I've written out a problem I give to my graduate students. I'm curious to see your approach." Anna looked down at the notepad. The problem involved optimizing a function with multiple constraints, the kind of thing she'd seen in Professor Chen's advanced optimization class. While she cleaned, she picked up the pen Dr. Okafor offered and began working through the problem, aware of the 4 pairs of eyes watching her. It was harder this time, with them all observing so intently, but after a moment the familiar sense of focus returned. The room, the professors, even her own nervousness faded as she worked. When she finished and looked up, the 4 professors were exchanging glances. "Remarkable," Dr. Wu said softly. "Absolutely remarkable, you see?" Professor Chen said to his colleagues. "Just as I told you." "Anna," Dr. Wu said, leaning forward, "how would you feel about taking some placement tests, just to help us understand the full extent of your mathematical knowledge?" Anna frowned slightly. "What would be the purpose?" The professors exchanged glances again. "Anna," Professor Chen said carefully, "we believe you have an extraordinary mathematical gift, the kind that shouldn't be, well, the kind that could be developed further, with the right opportunities." "What Thomas is trying to say," Dr. Wu interjected, "is that we'd like to explore the possibility of offering you a place in our program." Anna blinked. "Your program?" "Our mathematics degree program," Dr. Wu clarified. "Potentially with a scholarship." Anna stared at her, uncomprehending. "You want me to become a student, here?" "It would be a bit unorthodox," Dr. Patel admitted. "You'd need to take placement tests, as Helen mentioned, and there would be some prerequisite courses to fulfill for the degree requirements. But based on what we've seen, you could likely test out of many lower-level courses." "But," Anna shook her head, trying to process this unexpected turn. "I work here. I clean the buildings. You could continue to work part-time," Dr. Wu said. "In fact, we could probably find you a position within the department, as a teaching assistant perhaps, once you've completed some coursework. The pay would be better than your current position." Anna's mind was racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "I have a daughter," she said. "She depends on me. I can't just change everything." "Of course," Dr. Wu nodded. "We understand this would be a significant change. We're not asking for an answer today. Take some time to think about it, discuss it with your family." "But why?" Anna asked, looking around at the 4 professors.
"Why would you do this for me?"
Dr. Okafor, who had been quietly observing until now, spoke up. "Because mathematics needs minds like yours, Anna. Because talent shouldn't be wasted due to circumstance." She smiled slightly. "And because it would be a shame if the next breakthrough in optimization theory came from the person who cleans our offices, rather than from our department officially." Anna looked down at the notepad in front of her, at the elegant solution she'd worked out. Was this really happening? Could she actually become a student again after all these years? I'll need to think about it, she said finally, and talk to my daughter. Of course, Dr. Wu nodded. In the meantime, I've put together some materials you might find interesting. She pushed a folder across the table, some papers on current research in several areas of mathematics. Just to give you a taste of what's being done. Anna took the folder cautiously as if it might vanish if she moved too quickly. My lunch break is almost over, she said, glancing at the clock on the wall. I should get back to work. Of course, Professor Chen said, standing. But please, let us know once you've had time to consider our offer. As Anna walked back to her cleaning cart, the folder clutched tightly under her arm. She felt as if she were moving through a dream. The familiar hallways of Pinecrest Community College suddenly seemed different, full of new possibilities. She thought of Lily, of how her daughter's eyes would light up when she told her about this meeting. She thought of all the nights she'd spent reading old mathematics textbooks by the dim light of their kitchen lamp after Lily had gone to bed. She thought of Mr. Suarez, her old teacher in Ecuador, who had first seen something special in the quiet girl who could solve equations faster than anyone else in the class. For the first time in many years, Anna allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she didn't just clean the classrooms where knowledge was shared, but participated in that sharing herself. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. As she pushed her cart toward the science building, Anna began mentally rearranging their schedule, their budget, their lives, trying to see if this dream could possibly fit into their reality. It would be hard. It would require sacrifices, but maybe, just maybe, it might be possible. I still don't understand why you're nervous, Lily said, adjusting her mother's collar. You've already proven you're smarter than half the people in that building. Anna smiled weakly, checking her reflection in the bathroom mirror one more time. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, dressed not in her usual gray, cleaning uniform but in a simple blue blouse and black pants that she normally saved for special occasions. It's been 25 years since I sat in a classroom as a student, Anna said, smoothing down her hair. What if I've forgotten how to learn properly? What if I can't keep up with the readings or the assignments? Lily rolled her eyes. Mom, you read math textbooks for fun. You'll be fine. It had been 3 weeks since the meeting with the mathematics faculty. 3 weeks of intense discussions, paperwork, and planning. Anna had taken their placement, tests, 6 hours of examinations that covered everything from basic algebra to advanced calculus. Dr. Wu had called 2 days later with the results. Extraordinary, she'd said. You tested out of every undergraduate mathematics requirement. We'd like to offer you direct admission to our master's program, with a full scholarship and a part-time position as a teaching assistant. Anna had nearly dropped the phone. Now, on the first day of the spring semester, she was preparing to attend her first graduate-level mathematics class, Mathematical Analysis 2, as a student, rather than as the person who would clean the room afterward. Do you have everything? Lily asked, handing Anna the new backpack they'd bought together at the discount store. Books? Notebooks, pens? Yes, yes, and yes, Anna said, taking the backpack. And you have your house key? You'll go straight home after debate club? Mom, Lily said with an exaggerated sigh. I'm 16, not 6. I've been coming home alone for years. I know, Anna said. It's just, everything is changing. Our schedule, our routine. Lily's face softened. She placed her hands on her mother's shoulders. Good things are changing, Mom, really good things. She grinned suddenly. Besides, now when I tell people my mom works at Pinecrest, I can say you're a mathematician instead of... She stopped abruptly, looking embarrassed. Instead of a cleaner, Anna finished for her. It's okay, Lily, I've never been ashamed of my work. It put food on our table, kept a roof over our heads. I know, Lily said quickly. I know you didn't, Anna assured her. She checked her watch. We should go. We'll both be late. As they walked to the bus stop together, something they rarely got to do given Anna's usual afternoon shift, Anna couldn't help marveling at how quickly their lives had changed. Her resignation from the cleaning staff had been accepted with surprise by Mrs. Patel, who couldn't quite believe Anna was leaving to become a student and teaching assistant in the mathematics department. I always knew you were smart, Mrs. Patel had said, signing the paperwork. But this This is something else. Good for you, Anna. The bus arrived, crowded with morning commuters. Anna and Lily squeezed on, finding standing room near the back. So what exactly will you be doing as a teaching assistant? Lily asked, holding onto a pole as the bus lurched forward. Helping Professor Chen with his introductory calculus classes, Anna explained. Grading papers, holding office hours for students who need extra help, that sort of thing. That's kind of perfect, Lily said with a grin. Considering how you ended up here. Anna smiled, remembering the look on Professor Chen's face when she'd solved that first problem. So much had happened since that evening. It felt like years ago rather than just a few weeks. The bus stopped at Pinecrest Community College, and both Anna and Lily prepared to get off. Lily to catch her connection to her high school. Anna to begin her new life as a graduate student. Good luck. Mom, Lily said, giving her a quick hug. You're going to be amazing. Have a good day, Mija, Anna replied. I'll see you at home tonight. As Lily hurried off toward her connection, Anna stood for a moment at the entrance to the college, taking a deep breath. Then, squaring her shoulders, she walked toward the mathematics building, not through the service entrance at the back as she had for 6 years, but through the main doors at the front. The graduate mathematics classroom was smaller than Anna had expected, just a seminar room with a large oval table surrounded by about 15 chairs. When she walked in, several students were already seated chatting among themselves or reviewing notes. They looked up briefly as she entered, then returned to their conversations. Anna chose a seat near the door, arranging her new notebook and textbook carefully in front of her. She felt conspicuously out of place, older than the other students by at least 15 years and acutely aware that she lacked their years of formal education. A young man with glasses sat down next to her. First day jitters? He asked with a friendly smile. I'm David, second-year grad student. Anna, she replied, returning his smile hesitantly. And yes, very much first-day jitters. Don't worry, Dr. Okafor is tough but fair, David said. Her classes are challenging, but you learn a ton. Are you new to the program? I don't think I've seen you around before. Before Anna could respond, the door opened and Dr. Okafor walked in, followed by Professor Chen. The room immediately quieted. Good morning, everyone, Dr. Okafor said, setting her materials on the table. Welcome to Mathematical Analysis 2. I see some familiar faces and some new ones. Her eyes paused briefly on Anna, and she gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Before we begin, she continued, I'd like to introduce a special guest. Professor Chen will be sitting in on our class today. Professor Chen smiled at the group. Don't mind me. I'm just here to observe, and perhaps to learn something new myself. Anna knew he was there to support her, to be a familiar face on her first day, though he hadn't said so directly. She gave him a grateful look. Dr. Okafor began the class by reviewing the syllabus, outlining her expectations for the semester. Anna took careful notes, determined not to miss anything important. When Dr. Okafor started discussing the first topic, the Lebesgue integral and its applications, Anna found herself relaxing slightly. This was familiar territory. She'd read about it in one of the papers Dr. Wu had given her. Now, Dr. Okafor said, let's start with a problem to gauge where everyone stands. She wrote a complex equation on the board. Take a few minutes to work through this. It builds on concepts from Analysis Y, but introduces some new elements we'll be exploring this semester. Anna studied the problem, identifying the key components. It was challenging but not impossible. She began working through it methodically in her notebook, barely noticing as the room fell silent around her. Everyone focused on their own work. After about 10 minutes, Dr. Okafor asked, would anyone like to share their approach? Anna hesitated, not wanting to draw attention to herself. But to her surprise, no one else volunteered. Finally, David raised his hand. I think we need to apply the monotone convergence theorem here, he began. But I'm stuck on how to set up the sequence of functions. Dr. Okafor nodded. That's a good start. Anyone else have thoughts on how to proceed? Anna took a deep breath and raised her hand. Yes, Anna, Dr. Okafor said, her expression revealing nothing. We could use the dominated convergence theorem instead, Anna suggested, her voice quieter than she intended. If we define a sequence of simple functions that converge pointwise to our target function, and find an integrable function that dominates the sequence, We can exchange the limit and the integral. Dr. Okafor's eyebrows rose slightly. Can you elaborate on how you would construct such a sequence? Anna explained her thinking, growing more confident as she spoke. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. That's precisely the approach I was looking for, Dr. Okafor said finally. Well done. She turned back to the board and began extending Anna's solution, connecting it to the topics they would be covering in the weeks ahead. Anna felt a small glow of pride. She caught Professor Chen's eye. He was smiling broadly. As the class continued, Anna found herself participating more, asking questions when concepts weren't clear, offering insights when she had them. By the end of the 2-hour session, she had nearly forgotten her earlier nervousness. As students packed up their things, David turned to her again. That was impressive, he said. You seem to have a really intuitive grasp of this stuff. Did you study at another university before coming here? Anna hesitated, unsure how to explain her unusual situation. No, she said finally. I'm new to formal study, but I've been reading mathematics on my own for many years. David looked surprised but nodded. Cool. A bunch of us usually get coffee after class to go over notes and work on problem sets together. Want to join? Anna was momentarily taken aback by the invitation. In all her planning and worrying about starting this new chapter, she hadn't considered the social aspects of being a student, the friendships, the study groups, the casual conversations about shared interests. I would like that, she said, surprising herself. But I can't today. I have to get to my teaching assistant orientation. You're a TA too? For which class? Introductory Calculus with Professor Chen. David grinned. No way, I took that my senior year. Chen is notorious for being a tough grader. So I've heard, Anna said with a small smile, gathering her things. As they walked out together, Anna spotted Professor Chen waiting in the hallway. I should go, she said to David. But thank you for the invitation. Maybe next time? Definitely, David said. See you Thursday. Anna walked over to Professor Chen, who was beaming with undisguised pride. So, he said, how does it feel to be on the other side of the classroom? Anna thought for a moment. Different, she said finally. Good different, but it will take some getting used to. You did well in there, Professor Chen said as they walked toward his office for the TA orientation. Dr. Okafor was impressed. She texted me during class. Anna felt herself blush slightly. The material is interesting. I'm looking forward to learning more. And the students? How was it interacting with them? They were kind, Anna said, thinking of David's friendly overtures. One of them invited me to join their study group. You should go, Professor Chen encouraged. The collaborative aspect is an important part of graduate study. Anna nodded, though the thought of socializing with classmates young enough to be her children still felt strange. One step at a time, she reminded herself. One day at a time. As they entered Professor Chen's office to begin her orientation as a teaching assistant, Anna felt a curious mixture of excitement and apprehension. In just a few days, she would be helping to teach calculus to undergraduates, some of them likely the very students who had witnessed her solving that problem as a cleaner just weeks ago. Life could change so quickly, Anna thought. One moment you're pushing a cleaning cart through familiar hallways, and the next, you're being invited to coffee with graduate students and preparing to teach mathematics yourself. She only hoped she was ready for whatever came next. And that's why we can't simply cancel these terms, Anna explained, circling part of the equation she'd written on the whiteboard. We need to be careful about the domain of the function. Can anyone tell me what might happen if we tried to evaluate this at x equals 0? 30 pairs of eyes stared back at her with varying levels of comprehension. It was the third week of Anna's calculus discussion section, the small group sessions she led as Professor Chen's teaching assistant to supplement his larger lectures. A young woman, in the front row, tentatively raised her hand. We'd be dividing by 0, which is undefined. Exactly, Anna said with an encouraging smile. Good, Olivia. Teaching hadn't come naturally to Anna at first. During her initial sessions, she'd been nervous, speaking too quietly and rushing through explanations. But over the past few weeks, she'd grown more comfortable at the front of the classroom. She discovered that she enjoyed breaking down complex concepts into simpler parts, finding different ways to explain the same idea until she saw that moment of understanding dawn on a student's face. All right, let's try another example, Anna said, erasing the board. This one's a bit trickier. As she guided the students through another problem, Anna noticed a figure standing at the back of the classroom, Professor Chen. Observing her teaching as he occasionally did, she nodded to him briefly before returning her attention to the students. After class, as the students filed out, several stopped to ask Anna questions about the upcoming assignment. She answered each one patiently, drawing additional examples when needed. "You've really found your rhythm," Professor Chen commented after the last student had left. "They respond well to you." "I'm still learning," Anna said, gathering her materials. "But I think I'm getting better at anticipating where they'll struggle." "That's because you remember your own learning process," Professor Chen said. "Unlike those of us who've been doing this so long, we've forgotten what it's like to encounter these concepts for the first time." Anna smiled, acknowledging the truth in his words. "Maybe so." "I actually came by for a specific reason," Professor Chen said, his tone turning more serious. "The department is hosting a colloquium next month, a presentation of current research by faculty and graduate students. Dr. Wu suggested you might present your work on optimization algorithms." Anna froze in the middle of erasing the whiteboard. "My work? But I've only been in the program for a few months. And in that time, you've developed an approach to constrained optimization that builds on the Liu method in a way none of us have seen before," Professor Chen said. "Dr. Okafor thinks it has significant potential. We'd like you to share it." Anna put down the eraser, her mind racing. The idea of presenting her work to the entire mathematics department, to experienced professors and fellow graduate students, was terrifying. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted. "You are," Professor Chen said with certainty. "And it would be good experience. Plus, several faculty from other universities will be attending. Networking is an important part of academic life." Anna nodded slowly. She'd learned that much already from her months in graduate school, that mathematics wasn't just about solving problems in isolation, but about sharing ideas, collaborating, building on each other's work. "All right," she said finally. "I'll do it." "You look like you're about to face a firing squad, not give a math talk," Lily said, adjusting the collar of Anna's blouse. "Stand up straight. You look amazing." Anna took a deep breath, smoothing down the front of her new outfit, a professional-looking blazer and slacks that Lily had insisted they buy for the occasion, despite Anna's protests about the cost. "What if I freeze up? What if they ask questions I can't answer?" Anna fretted, checking her note cards for the 10th time that morning. "Mom," Lily said firmly, taking the cards from Anna's hands. "You know this stuff better than anyone. You've been practicing your presentation for weeks. David and your other study group friends said it was brilliant. Professor Chen thinks it's important enough to present to visiting professors. You're going to be fine." Anna nodded, trying to believe her daughter's words. Over the past 6 months, her life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. She was excelling in her graduate courses, had formed genuine friendships with several of her fellow students, and was developing a reputation as one of the most patient and effective teaching assistants in the department. But today's presentation felt like a test, not just of her mathematical abilities, but of whether she truly belonged in this academic world that had so unexpectedly opened up to her. "We should go," Anna said, glancing at her watch. "I want to get there early to set up." The colloquium was being held in one of the larger lecture halls in the mathematics building. When Anna and Lily arrived, the room was still mostly empty, with just a few faculty members chatting near the front. "Anna," Dr. Wu called, waving them over. "Perfect timing. Let me introduce you to some colleagues." Anna spent the next half hour meeting professors from various universities, trying to remember names and research interests, while Lily stood supportively at her side. Several people mentioned having read the abstract of her presentation and expressed interest in her approach. Gradually, the hall began to fill with faculty, graduate students, and even some ambitious undergraduates. Anna spotted David and the rest of her study group taking seats near the front, giving her encouraging thumbs up. "Look," Lily whispered, nudging Anna's arm. In the back, Anna turned to see several people in gray uniforms slipping quietly into seats in the last row. Members of the cleaning staff, including Mrs. Patel. They smiled and waved when they caught Anna's eye. "They came to support you," Lily said softly. Anna felt a lump form in her throat. "I should go thank them after your talk," Dr. Wu said, appearing at Anna's elbow. We're ready to begin. You'll be the second presenter after Dr. Patel. Anna nodded, her nervousness returning full force. Lily squeezed her hand. You've got this. Mom, she whispered before going to find a seat. Anna took a place in the front row, trying to focus on Dr. Patel's presentation about recent advances in number theory, but her mind kept jumping ahead to her own talk. Before she knew it, Dr. Patel was finishing, and Dr. Wu was introducing her. Our next presenter is Ana Diaz, a first-year graduate student whose unique approach to optimization algorithms has already caught the attention of several faculty members. Her work combines elements of the Liu method with novel constraints that show promising applications in various fields. Please welcome Anna. The applause felt distant as Anna walked to the podium, her note cards clutched tightly in her hand. She looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some strange, all waiting for her to speak. For a brief, terrifying moment, she thought she might not be able to do it. Then her eyes found Lily in the audience, smiling encouragingly. Behind her sat Professor Chen, who gave her a small nod. And in the back row, the cleaning staff who had once been her colleagues watched with unmistakable pride. Anna took a deep breath and began to speak. 2 years ago, I was introduced to the Liu method while cleaning classrooms after hours, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Today, I'd like to share how that initial encounter led to my current research on constrained optimization. As she spoke, explaining her approach with clarity and precision, the nervousness gradually fell away. This was mathematics, the language she had loved since childhood, the world where she had always felt at home, even when she'd only been able to observe it from the outside while emptying trash bins and mopping floors. When she finished her prepared remarks and opened the floor for questions, hands shot up around the room. Anna addressed each query thoughtfully, finding herself engaged in genuine mathematical dialogue with professors whose textbooks she had once read in stolen moments between cleaning duties. After the final question, the applause was warm and sustained. As Anna returned to her seat, several people stopped her to continue the discussion or express interest in her work. That was wonderful, Dr. Wu said, beaming. Several colleagues have already asked for copies of your full paper. Thank you, Anna said, still slightly dazed by the positive reception. As the colloquium broke for a coffee break, Anna made her way to the back of the room where Mrs. Patel and the other cleaning staff members were gathered. We're so proud of you, Mrs. Patel said, embracing her warmly. I didn't understand a word of what you were saying, but you looked like you belonged up there. Thank you for coming, Anna said, touched by their support. It means so much to me. You're showing everyone what's possible, one of her former colleagues said. My daughter asked me yesterday if I thought she could become a scientist someday. Because of you, I told her yes. Anna felt tears prick at her eyes. Before she could respond, Lily appeared at her side, practically bouncing with excitement. Mom, that professor from MIT wants to talk to you about your research. He says it connects to some work his team is doing. Anna excused herself and followed Lily back toward the front of the room, where a small crowd had gathered. As she answered questions and exchanged contact information with interested colleagues, Anna caught sight of Professor Chen standing off to the side, watching with a satisfied smile. Later, as the event wound down, he approached her. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. Anna looked at him in surprise. For what? For that first day in my classroom. For trying to embarrass you. He shook his head. I look back on that moment now with such shame. Don't, Anna said simply. Without that moment, I wouldn't be here now. Professor Chen considered this. Perhaps, but I suspect you would have found your way eventually. Talent like yours doesn't stay hidden forever. Maybe, Anna acknowledged, but it might have taken much longer. So in a strange way, I'm grateful for what happened. As they spoke, Lily joined them, followed by David and several other graduate students who wanted to celebrate Anna's successful presentation. We're heading to the coffee shop, David announced. First round is on me. Anna, you're the guest of honor, Anna smiled, looking around at the faces of her daughter, her colleagues, her friends, this community that had formed around her in just 6 months. I'd like that, she said. As they walked across campus together, Anna thought about the long, winding path that had brought her here, from a small town in Ecuador, through years of cleaning classrooms while quietly absorbing knowledge, to this moment of belonging among people who valued her mind and her contributions. It hadn't been an easy journey, and there were still challenges ahead, More courses to complete, a thesis to write, a career to build. But for the first time in decades, Anna felt that she was exactly where she was meant to be, and it had all started because a professor had tried to make a joke at her expense, never suspecting that the woman with the cleaning cart would end up teaching him a lesson about assumptions, about hidden potential, and about the power of a mind that refuses to be limited by circumstances.